Spiccato is one of the most fundamental bow strokes that we use on any stringed instrument. I use it every single time I play a gig. I use it every single time I practice, and I realized the other day I've never done a video just about spiccato. So today's video is a step-by-step guide on how you can get going with mastering spiccato. We dig into topics like this and much more in our weekly email newsletter. We've got free monthly sheet music and bass community news, all sorts of tips for getting your double bass game to the next level. If you're not on the list, consider subscribing. First of all, we're just going to get the bow bouncing and find the spot where that works best. And by the way, all of these exercises are available in a PDF, which you can download in the description below. So we just take our bow and we find somewhere about in the middle of the bow a spot where the bow likes to jump, and experiment, move out to the tip. At a certain point near the frog, you'll find that your whole arm gets engaged. Just experiment and don't be in too much of a hurry. Don't try to even move the bow back and forth right now. Try it on each open string. Try it a little faster, try it a little slower. And this can be very helpful to practice in front of a mirror so you can make sure that your bow is exactly perpendicular to the string. If it's kind of at an angle, this is going to cause problems for the stroke. And by the way, sometimes people are a little concerned about learning spiccato and delay it, but I've found, and a lot of other teachers agree, that if you introduce it early as a teacher or in your own playing as you're working on things, you will actually find that it helps develop your bow hold, because you really can't have a great bow hold that doesn't also have an easy bounce.
Practicing spiccato is actually kind of fun because it really gets your bass resonating in a different way. It's like getting the resonance of the instrument, the ring of the strings, and it's just such a fun technique. And I think when you're starting out, you think to play short notes, you have to stay on the string and just play staccato. But spiccato really does kind of channel your inner pick style guitarist or bassist, and you really get your instrument resonating in a cool way.
German bow is the same concept, and it's not my main bow, but I obviously have one here. It's nice and bouncy, bouncier than the French, many people find. And if you want to learn more about German bow, check out what we've got linked up in the description. I've done several videos about German bow. Once you've got that up and down motion going, you can add just a little back and forth. And it's like the bow is landing and making a little V on the string. It's almost like taking a pick on an electric bass and doing upstrokes and downstrokes. It's a very similar concept. And you just want to let the string ring. And keep an eye on that bow angle. Make sure that it is exactly perpendicular to the string. Don't worry too much about volume at this point. Once you get it going and you get some consistency to it so that you're more or less getting the string to speak, play around with dynamics. Try it a little louder. And find out where in your bow and with your gear that works best. You may find you need to get a little closer to the frog to play louder. I certainly do. And to play softer, you may find that you want to back a little bit away from the frog, get a little bit more out in the middle. Experiment with the angle of the hair. Try flat hair. Try angling the stick slightly towards you. And to be honest, I'm constantly changing the angle, the amount of time the hair is on the string, and all that kind of stuff, depending on the piece I'm playing, the style of the composer. And this is an introduction to spiccato. This stroke you will refine over the months and years that you play double bass, but I found that this is the best way to introduce this stroke.
Once you start getting into spiccato, you may discover that your bow doesn't handle the way you hoped it might, and there might be a good time to think about an upgrade for bows. I've done a whole bunch of videos on bows. I will link up to something here for you to check out if you want to go deep on bows.
Another thing that's super important is to find quality rosin, and that's where today's sponsor, Upton Bass, comes in with their new Upton Bass rosin. They've got two different formulas, Maple and Maple Plus. Plus this honey rosin, which is a harder rosin. It's a little bit of a finishing rosin. And I've really been enjoying the maple, and we were just passing around a cake of Maple Plus on a gig I was on not too long long ago, and really digging that as well. That's even closer to pops. They both are a little bit of a combination of pops with a Swedish rosin like Carlson. I've found that it works great in the winter. It's been working great in the warmer months. Learn more in the description below, and thank you Upton for sponsoring this video. Next up, we want to develop this stroke. So just taking it and getting it going in what I think of as an 8th note spiccato. And I find that using a metronome is super helpful for this. And if it's not super consistent during your practice session, a good strategy is just to put it away and pick it up another day. This is one of those skills that may take some time to develop, but be persistent, try different things, be a problem solver, and you will find that magic combination of the spot on the bow, the spot on the string, the amount of rosin, the amount of a tightness or looseness in the hair. All of those things will have an impact on your spiccato. So far, we've just been doing this on open strings, but of course, we want to be able to do it on everything. So applying this stroke to scales is the next thing, and I do a different scale every week. I think G is great when you're starting out because it gets all 4 strings if we use the open G. So just doing a G scale 8 times in each note I think is great. And I'm playing this fairly quickly, but absolutely slow it down. Find a tempo that works for you. This is one of those strokes that if it gets too slow, it's actually harder. So somewhere in the 100 for the quarter note and playing 8th notes, I find that that's a great spot for people to start, but slow it down a little bit. Even as slow as 60 or 70 on the metronome, that can also work. And again, that sweet spot's going to be different for everybody. So experiment and find what clicks for you, and then you can go from there. This next exercise is one that I do every single day, and I find that it helps to keep the blade sharp. It's great for what David Allen Moore calls musical hygiene, and just gets my spiccato in good working order. And I call it the 4-2-1 pattern. You can call it all kinds of things, and it works on any scale, obviously, in different tempos. And here we go. You can repeat that as many times as you want, or you can go directly on and do 2 times per note. And you can connect all of these or just do them individually, however you like. And then finally, 1 time per note, and you may want to slow the tempo down if it's a bit fast for you. And of course, doing this over 2 octaves in different scales is great. Starting up bow is great. And monitoring your level of activation or tension or lack of tension. And I just use a scale of 1 to 10. I kind of think 10 would be I am so tense I can't move. 1 would be I'm laying on the floor totally asleep. So we can't have either one happen for spiccato. So finding somewhere in the middle. And I'm trying to be as relaxed as I can while still having the bow work correctly. It is not a super loosey-goosey stroke, but it's not a super tight stroke either. And you'll find for both French and German bow, when you get it, there's a little bit of springiness in the fingers, but that's really a reaction to the arm making the stroke, and the fingers are kind of the last thing to move. I've done a whole video about that, which I will link up to here, but just as you're practicing this or anything on the bass, this is monitoring how much tension you're holding in your body and trying to see if you can find the optimal amount. I usually find where I'm at, and I think, can I go from a 6 to a 5? I'm generally not trying to tighten up more. Finally, I thought it would be good to include an actual piece of music that utilizes a lot of spiccato, and you can't go wrong with the first movement of Mozart's Eine, Kleine, Nachtmusik. I will play this through in its entirety so you can see how I approach the stroke anyway, but just a few key points before we start. Now we are introducing variables like string crossings, and we are having long notes in with short notes. We're having straight eighth notes. Those are going to be by and large played off the string. We have other lengths of notes which are by and large going to be played on the string. I have put in some bowings that I do, but there's no one right way to bow anything. Certainly I have intentionally not put in fingerings, though I will do fingerings. You can follow mine or ignore them. And I think this is just a great way to kind of go to the next level with your spiccato. So feel free to play along with my example and have a great time discovering how you can apply spiccato to this great piece of music.